Welcome to the second episode of the Passion Project podcast. Today's guest is Brother Zeyad Boodoo. He's a math teacher at Noble Leadership Academy. He studied biology and chemistry, double major. He has a lot to benefit. He's super funny, really cool. He's in background. He's also my math teacher and needs good grades. So I've kind of you know what I mean. Today we discussed different topics. We talked about politics. We talked about growing up in Trinidad. We talked about MMA fighting. It was a cool conversation. So feel free to enjoy his conversation, and hopefully we'll see more of him and benefit from him more often. Zeyad, assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Welcome, man.
Yeah.
I had to force Brother Zeyad to be here. Well, not force. It's like corrupted episode, and then had to wait here for like 30 minutes to see if he had a class. Class got canceled. Brother Zeyad low-key doesn't want to be here, but I was like, you have to be here.
Ahmed Saqer in last minute.
Listen, man. Procrastination is a skill.
Okay, you've mastered that skill. You got a lot of practice.
Me, Anas, Mahmoud, Tariq, all mastered the skill of procrastination.
Okay, he has so much practice.
Hey, in my defense, Brother Zeyad. Okay, look. When do you put the grades in for this? If you guys don't know Brother Zeyad puts his grades in the day of the last day of the market period.
But they're in by the last day of the market period.
But we need to see him, man.
Okay.
I'm also mentioning this because the end of the trimester is next week and he has to put the grades in. Just giving him a heads up.
Ahmed.
The grades in. He had my homework grades that may or may not be there.
Well, continue on, Ahmed. I'm not even gonna address that.
My sleeping in class getting right now.
Getting a write up from me for sleeping in class. Okay.
So I guess we'll go into it. I guess we'll start off the topic. It's fine, Kamil. Keep going. Kamil dropped stuff, guys. So great. So you personally, right? Not from here, if that makes sense.
From here.
Yeah, but you're not from here.
This became a political podcast, and we have red versus blue over here.
Yes.
You're not from here. What are you doing here?
You're not supposed to be here. No, okay. You grew up in Trinidad, right?
Yes, I grew up in Trinidad. Yes.
So you always tell us your stories. Entertain our viewers with this Trinidadian stuff.
I don't know how entertaining it'll be, but yeah. So I grew up in Trinidad. For people who don't know, Trinidad it's a Caribbean island right off the coast of Venezuela. It's like 7 miles off the coast. Yeah. So some stuff about, I guess, my childhood.
Whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay. So we grew up in a pretty. Trinidad is not a poor country. It's actually it's actually the richest Caribbean island, but we were just the poorest in our town. So we didn't have things like you would expect in like a first world or even a second world country. You would have running water, electricity. We didn't have any of that. So I think that shaped my perspective on a lot of things. Right, not having running water, not having electricity, having to go walk 2 miles for water. That's something that will shape your perspective. So interesting things that happen. You'd come home every day. You'd walk probably like a mile and a half. Pick up some water. You'd walk home. Walk with a stick in your hand. There's no leash laws in Trinidad, or if there are, there's nobody enforces it. All right. So you get attacked by a dog. I can't even tell you how many times I've gotten attacked by dogs.
But this kid has the scars to prove it.
Now, alhamdulillah, I've never gotten bitten, but my sister and my brother, they both can't say the same thing. So yeah. Interesting thing about Trinidad, even though but I always bring it up in the context of class. Anytime I see students who are not appreciating what they have, I usually bring it up in the context of, or kids who are saying they're bored, they have all this technology. I usually bring it up in the context that, look, even though came from all these things, we had the most fun time, and we always found ways to make ourselves interested in something. For example, building kites, flying kites, and battling with kites with like razor blades.
What is that? 1 second.
It stops you reading books. We actually did this.
This story I don't know. You have to tell me this story. Kites with razor blades.
Yeah, kites. Take a piece of paper, take some broomstick, right? Okay. Take some flour and water because we couldn't afford glue, right? That makes perfect glue, guys. That sticky dough stuff. That's glue. Cut up an old T-shirt if you had one. You got a tail. You got sometimes you have the neighbor's thread.
Okay.
And then you make a kite. You somebody put razor blades and try to cut the other person's string down.
What the heck?
Yeah. There's a lot of fun, interesting stuff. Like we always find stuff to do, like building cannons with bamboo. We used to have this bamboo forest right outside of my house, and not the bamboo that you usually see in.
I was saying, isn't bamboo only in China?
No. Bamboo's all over. It's all over. At least it's in the tropical. The bamboo sometimes grows like 30 feet plus, right? And they grow actually pretty thick. You can actually build cannons with that. So we've done all of these things: build cannons, build tree houses.
So low key, if we're ever in a tornado or natural disaster, go to Brother Zeyad.
No, I grew up in the tropics. Maybe a hurricane, but I don't know about tornadoes. I grew up in Kansas.
So I guess we'll break down what you said. So I guess today people came in for Togo, right?
Yeah.
And they came and talked about the world, and that was something I was thinking about.
Yeah.
I was like, man, like, how is the world so oblivious look, we have running water now, we have water filters, while there's still countries.
We have Poland Spring and Fuji.
Yeah.
Today's
Fuji water.
Two kids were talking about Fuji and all the minerals they had.
Fuji water, bro. Isn't it like $3 a water?
It's like $3-4 a bottle. Yeah.
I'm sitting here like, what is it about Fuji water?
It ran over a couple of rocks and picked up some calcium. That's
Yes.
Continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. So I guess that was one of the things I was thinking about. I was like, wow, like our society is progressing, and there's still countries that don't have running water.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is, we live in a bubble. Like, I always tell somebody, like, when you're upset, you are. Alhamdulillah, we're Muslim. Not only you're Muslim, you're living in a first world country, right? The United States of all countries, and you're probably not in the lowest economic bracket. So if you just do some simple math, you're probably in the top 2% of the world. Your conditions.
I think you told me this.
Yeah. You're top 2% of the world. So when you're thinking, you're starting getting upset about something, you're like, you are in the top 2% of where people are in the world. And that just puts things in perspective. Like, sometimes it's helpful to remind yourself of that.
I think there was something, I don't know the specific number, but it was flabbergasting. It's like the amount of people that don't have food or something is like, if you have specific amount of food, you're like in the top 1%. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
The food insecurity rate at a global level is
food insecurity. Starvation.
Starvation.
This guy with euphemisms now. I hate euphemisms.
No, Brother Ziyad's straightforward, guys. We'll see this for the rest of the podcast, inshallah. We're gonna keep going to the nitty gritty. Brother Ziyad's gonna be straightforward. Inshallah. But I guess you always seem like you don't seem bothered by it. Like, I feel like there's a lot of stigma that people who grow up poor just tend to be depressed.
Oh no, I love it. I'm telling you, that's one of the best things. Alhamdulillah, not having a TV, like, you would have to find ways of entertainment. And one of the things was like reading the newspaper. I just remember, like, at 4 years old, you have to pick up you're sitting down at home. You're waiting for the candlelight to go out because that's when you're going to sleep. You're going to go to sleep at 7 o'clock. And you just got to sometimes there's a newspaper. You got to learn how to read. And I remember my dad used to line us up and make us read to him. And he never graduated high school or anything, but he was like phenomenally well read.
Really?
Phenomenally well read. I think the most educated person that I've talked to, like, people spoke on the phone with him, they're like, your dad sounds super intelligent. I was like, yeah, he never even graduated high school or anything like that. He just read a lot. Newspapers, books, everything. He just read. So, those things, I think, shaped me eventually, right? Like, learning that love, you got to define something to learn about, something to read about. I think that shaped me a lot. So I actually don't look back at it. In fact, I look back at it happy. It's fond memories because it wasn't passive. You're not passive. You're not just, how many kids are going to remember what game they played? Or maybe they remember video game, but you're not going to, most of your time, if you're in today's world, you're just spending passively, doing passive stuff.
Sitting down,
watching a screen or something. Yeah. I don't even remember, like, if I watched the movie like 2-3 years later, you don't even remember the details.
Brother, you hate on a lot of movies.
Yeah, I do hate a lot of movies. Well, you tend to forget traumatic events. So.
Brother Ziyad has hated on Joker, on every Disney
Terrible
film,
movie.
on Avengers. Joker's not terrible.
It's not okay. let me qualify that.
Go into no.
It's-
I refuse because I love that movie.
So I saw it once, and it's quite some time now. So my thoughts might be a little fractured, but I was using this analogy to describe it. Michelle Obama's speech, Melania Trump. I don't know, Melania Trump. She gave a speech at the Republican National Convention, and it received a standing ovation. Standing ovation. Remind you, this is in the age of Trump, where you have the
MAGA.
Yeah, you have the Make America Great Again people. You have these people applauding her. These people are applauding her. And that audience gave that speech a standing ovation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they found out later it was actually Michelle Obama's speech that she gave at the Democratic convention.
She just
like 4 8 years. Yeah, Melania completely plagiarized the speech. Would that speech also got a standing ovation? So you have to ask yourself, you have this one speech that got a standing ovation at a young, hip, progressive-looking crowd, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the Barack Obama's convention. And then you have, in the DNC with Barack Obama, and then you have the same in an older, more conservative Republican, and the character, the characterizations of those people. That the same speech got a standing ovation from both of those crowds. What does that mean? What could that tell you?
It's pragmatic in essence. Like it's not trying to offend anybody.
It could tell you that the speech lacked content, because if it did, it would have offended somebody. It would have offended somebody. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The joker's like that. It's trying not to take a stand on anything, and coming off like it is taking a stand on anything, so everyone could just walk out of the theaters somewhat, oh, that was deep, but when you really look at it, it's not. It was not. I don't like even the lines. The worst part of mental illness is people think you're not. It comes off as deep, sure, but if you really think about, wait, is that really the worst part of mental illness? People thinking you're not mentally ill? Is that really the worst part of mental illness? You know what I'm saying? It's one of those movies that just everything about the movie had like it was artifice. So you had even I know Joaquin Phoenix now, he won the best actor, I believe, right?
Yes, I believe that's best actor. Yes.
Yeah, he won the best actor for this part. But his acting itself, it's superficial. It's all extreme. It's exaggerated. There's nothing behind it. It's all artifice. I feel that was perfect for the movie, because the movie it didn't tell anything. It didn't take a stand on anything. It's a time period movie that's not set. It didn't want to address anything today's world, so it set it in like some random period, 1980s, 1970s. So I think like all of those things, like it tried to copy Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy.
But then here's my question, right? Because I listen, and I think I mentioned this to you, right? And I listened to it about a 2-hour something thing on postmodernism, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like everything has to mean something else. You know what I mean? So how much is it that we have to look into entertainment like that and saying like, oh, it didn't do like that, it didn't comment on anything, or it meant to comment on something? Why can't it just be like?
But okay, so I would agree. If entertainment does not necessarily need to say anything or take a stand on anything, but the movie set itself up to do so. Right, the movies are referenced, King of Comedy, Taxi Driver. They took stands on issues in their times, racism, and there's other things that they took stands on. The movie deliberately played up its connection to those things. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
It played up even for having Robert De Niro, in the same role and just reversed. Does it make sense? So it's trying to say we're like these movies. But if you're going to try to say that, then you're going to be held to those standards. Does that make sense? It set itself up to be held to those standards, and when you hold it up to those standards, it just falls apart. And you just see it's just like it's I use a line from Shakespeare, all right, when it says it's I believe it's Macbeth. No, I believe it's Macbeth, and it's like it's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
Explain.
It's a tale told by an idiot,
okay,
right? Full of sound and fury. It has all the over the top acting, all the over the top costumes, everything over the top, right?
Mm-hmm.
Full of sound and fury, but it doesn't mean anything, signifying nothing. What does it mean? Nothing. It is because it is. It's out there. It's extra for no reason. It's not really trying to do anything besides saying, "Hey, I'm extra." You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to break it down.
Extra's extra, man. It's all good.
Yeah. So I don't think entertainment necessarily needs to be intellectual, but if you're setting yourself up to be compared to like other things that were other pieces of forms of art that were, then I think you should be held to those standards.
And then since you hate on so many movies, what is your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? I have.
Give us like a top 2, top 3.
There's a favorite. There's movies I enjoy at moments. Like there's some movies like Shawshank Redemption, Pulp Fiction. There's movies. Good Will Hunting. Good Will Hunting.
The classic.
I don't know if they're classics, but there's sentimental value, I guess. Grave of the Fireflies is an animated movie.
Bridge to Terabithia. One of my favorite movies emotionally.
Yeah, it depends on what mood I'm going through. To be honest with you, there's a lot of movies.
So what does it can be intellectual? Camel, do you just bring me water and a Gatorade bottle?
Action movies.
Brothers Yet also hates on Gatorade.
Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings. I just think it's amazing.
There you go.
I'm not saying it's the most intellectual thing out there, but just it's good world building. Yeah.
I guess I also like intellectual things as well. Like personally, like my preference on like movies and books, right, is that I like things that have lore, right? Like something that like might not be clearly explained, but like people can like theorize on it and constantly make up, and then the story keeps going on that it fills in those gaps as things go on. That's my preference. So I can see like not everything has to be necessarily political, but things can be intellectual at the same time.
Yeah, of course. I mean, especially when entertainment, I think that definitely that's the case.
We're also gonna bring up because now we have Gatorade. But this guy calls Gatorade sweat.
No.
He hates on Gatorade too. He says it tastes like sweat.
It does. I mean, I don't know what else you could say about it.
This is water, so we're good.
It's water. It's fine. No. I don't know. You want to talk about Gatorade.
So again, I guess we'll continue to move on. You just mentioned as well. Well, we were just doing this actually. So really, you're into like the martial arts, the boxing.
I'm not very good at it, yeah, but I like.
Nobody's seen his left hook. This guy will rip you.
No. No, I believe as Muslims, you should, especially as Muslims, men, and I do make a distinction between Muslim men, well, females too. I think you should know some form of martial arts, some form of practical martial arts, right? I think boxing is practical. I think jiu-jitsu is practical. I think wrestling is also practical.
Okay, so what's the benefits of each?
Okay, so the benefits of boxing, I think everyone should be able to use their hands because that's usually where any altercation, if there's ever, hopefully you never have to do this, but any altercation will start where? It'll start standing.
Yes.
I do believe the most important skill to learn is wrestling. Wrestling is the most important skill to learn of all the martial arts. Because a wrestler will determine how the fight plays out or how the altercation plays out. If someone's very, very good at punching or kicking, right? They're very experienced at karate, taekwondo, or just boxing. The wrestler can do what? Take them down, take out all their advantage. Or someone's very good at jiu-jitsu. Let's say they're a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. Well, let's say even a purple belt. Purple belt's pretty experienced, but let's say a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. The wrestler could probably try to keep that fight standing, right? The altercation standing, so they don't end up getting strangled.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I believe because the ability to dictate where things happen, I think that's the most important.
But isn't wrestling in essence trying to get someone to the floor?
And it's from the Sunnah.
Yeah.
No, the wrestling could also be defensive wrestling, trying to not be on the floor, right?
Yeah.
It's trying to take somebody down, but it's also trying not to get
taken down,
right? So there's two aspects of it. I think that's the most important base. I think everyone should, I didn't do wrestling in high school. It's one of the things if I had to do high school again, it would be like do wrestling, try to get into wrestling.
Well, is it be ripping all of CHS?
No. I'm not ripping all of CHS.
Let's go CHS, guys.
Because I know when I do jiu-jitsu and when, I have some experience now, but sometimes you have these guys who come in like a week in and they're very good wrestlers and sometimes they crush you. And you're like, man, this guy is good. I've been doing this a year and a half and he comes in and it's like kind of neutralizes everything you've done in the last year and a half, especially when they're like elite, they're collegiate, or they're like, they're high school state champion or something like very, very top notch. It just neutralizes and you see it right away. You could see that all that time they spent doing that one particular thing, it just makes them so good. So that happens. Anyone who's done any kind of jiu-jitsu will know right away. Even a blue belt will get crushed sometimes by a white belt who comes in with,
the wrestling aspect of it.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this for how long?
Probably a year and 9-10 months.
Yeah, then here's where we get deep, right? We're gonna get deep. So now looking like from my perspective, right? I always feel like I've been constantly contemplating because I'm going to college now, right? When does childhood end, and when is it that you can stop doing this fun stuff? So and you're still young. I'm not calling you old, but like, does life still have those aspects as you get older?
Well, I'm a lot older than you, and so, what aspect? So physical, I think physical clarity should be. I think you should keep some physical activity. Maybe find a hobby, physical hobby, whether it be rock climbing, wrestling, jujitsu. Well, it's hard to do wrestling when you get older, but jujitsu, something like this that you're just gonna be constantly active because, you know that phrase: if you don't use it, you lose it. Yeah. Your muscles, your strength, everything just. Yeah, there comes a point where it starts going downhill. You just want to keep. I just saw a study the other day, and they showed the quadricep muscle of somebody who's 70 years old, and they're like a triathlete, and it looks completely like a 20-year-old. And then they, yeah, not actually it did a microscopic slide.
Yeah.
So it was just, it shows you how healthy it was, and then they showed you somebody who's just sedentary, like they don't move around or anything, and it's like completely wasted away. Like you'll see so I believe you should be active, right? I'm not the most active person, but like within the last year and a half, I've really started picking it up, especially recently. I made a commitment. I'm going to try to get to a certain belt rank by certain time periods. So provided I don't get injured or anything.
So we can wrestle him in school and strip him.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, sure. Yeah, so I believe you should have some kind of activity. So I don't think that should ever end. There's some things, of course, that you're gonna have a lot more free time now that you're not gonna have later, right?
Then why? Here's my question, right? Because I was thinking about
responsibilities.
Yeah, but still, like I started work right now. If you're not going to school, right, all you're doing is working. That's the only thing you're doing, technically.
Welcome to America.
So no, but well, you're not working all day. You still have like 5-6 hours afterwards. So a day, and you're not working weekends. So now, where does that increase in time load come in?
So when you talk about as you get older,
yeah,
you're just gonna get more responsibilities. I don't know anyone who has maybe one or two people, but you know, who has 5 free hours every day. If I had 5 free hours every day, I'd probably get my grades done on time. Just
this is where things come full circle.
Comes full circle. Yeah. You get better at managing your time. You just learn, and whatever hobbies you're talking about, keeping what hobbies to keep. Is there some place where childhood ends? Yeah, obviously, the more responsibilities you get, childhood, you know, whatever you consider that to be. I think if you're defining childhood to be, you know, absence of like responsibility, you're still allowed to do mostly what you want to do. You know, no one's telling you to pay the rent. No one's telling you, hey, if you don't pay the rent, you're gonna get kicked out. No one's telling you, hey, you don't pay the water bill this month. You know, you're not
responsible. You do whatever you want.
Yeah, when those things, I think if you talk about childhood as that, then the childhood ends when those responsibilities start, right? Some kids, 14, 15, that they're already in that situation. So if that's what you're talking about childhood, then yeah, it's when the responsibilities start.
And I think we see that like in a historical sense that's shifted age-wise. Do you think that has to do with entertainment? This is a good question. This came to my mind. Do you think that has to do with this technology in general? That this age maturity is lessened, and now like a 10-year-old back in like the 1400s might have been like already manning a ship, or.
It has a lot to do. First, it has to do with the death rate. When people died earlier, that means they had to live their life earlier, right? Everything starts early. Everything is shifted down. If the life expectancy is 55 years old, like some countries right now that do have those kind of life expectancies, even like something like Russia, I think the life expectancy is like 60, like low 60s, if there, mm-hmm. Right? You see a shift downwards in where childhood ends, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's the first thing. It has to do with like the increase in medicine and health and antibiotics and the whole, people are living longer, so you can wait, you can prolong. People get married now at 30s. That's normal. Before, when people died at 50, getting married in their 30s was probably not going to be a smart idea.
Nope.
So that's the first thing. Yeah, I do think I don't think it's technology's fault or anything like that. No, I just think there's a lack of need for it. Right, if you
society in general.
Yeah, society in general. I don't think it's because this is a trend across most of the civilized world, right? The first world countries. I think it's a trend.
And do you think that's this late gain of responsibility is necessarily a bad thing?
Yeah, I think it's a bad thing.
Why? Cause I can see both. I think right now I can see both
Yeah,
sides.
yeah. Well, psychologically, there's new models that says kids don't really know in adolescence. Adolescence is defined as a period where they're still uncertain about things. I guess from an Islamic perspective, because we have all these, narration about Sahaba, for example, who were leading armies by certain ages and changing the world by certain ages, and comparing it now, like you can't even trust a 14-year-old to cross the street.
You can't trust me in my car, guys.
Before they used to trust a 14-year-old to lead an army or do something important, some important mission or something like this. Now it's not that anymore. So I think that that shows that there's. I say it's a bad thing because I'm trying to collect the words over here.
No, take your time, bro.
It just shows that because you're wasting potential, you're wasting that youth, you're wasting that energy. When you have more, if you're maturing later, you're wasting that. Say like from 15 to 20, you have that energy that you're probably not going to have, later, or that period. Let's say you have 15 years of that where you can really work and do something, right? You're just shrinking that period down. Let's say from 15 to 30 is where you can be the most productive you could possibly be, right? If you look at all the major scientists, most of their works were done early 20s, early 20s. Einstein's theory of relativity came out in his 20s, and Newton, most of his theories came out. Any great mathematician, you looked at their work, it was like early 20s. So all that foundation, that foundational years, if you're still undecided and you're still like figuring out your life by 22, Einstein, Newton,
you've wasted time.
Yeah, they already came out with their theories that would last us. Einstein theory, I forgot his theory of relativity. I think he published it in his 20s. Even from our Islamic tradition, Imam Nawawi, died very young.
Did he really?
Yeah, he died very extreme. I think, if you guys don't know, Imam Nawawi, he published the 40 Hadith, which is, and Riyadh al-Salihin, which is I think the most, the book that is the most popular book in a Muslim house outside of the Quran, which is amazing.
Yeah, I actually have it at home. You told me about it, and I checked home and I had one.
He died in his 30s.
Really?
Yeah, he died in his 30s, if I'm not mistaken. You're looking at some of these mashayikh, like really, that's how when they did this. Imam Shafi'i was leading, he was considered a scholar by, I think, before 20. So you're having these people, and you're saying, wow, they were so productive. Clearly, they used their youth. All right, Imam Bukhari started traveling, I believe, at 16. He started traveling the world to collect hadith. And
this is something we know, like when the Prophet ﷺ says that what's it called? The hadith says like one of the persons people shaded on the day of judgment is a youth who grew up in the worship of Allah. Yeah. And then so I draw from these two questions, right? Well, a comment and a question. So I guess we'll go to the comment first, right? That I guess I've noticed the same thing, right? Now that I'm working, and I told this to Cameron, I was like, start doing stuff at home now, because alhamdulillah, my parents, we're not spoiled, but my parents always wanted to make things easy on us, so they never.
You're living in comfort.
I'm living in comfort. Yeah. So I wasn't always asked to do every chore. My parents would always help out, so I didn't feel that sense of responsibility 24/7. I didn't always feel like, oh, I have to go take out the garbage, or I didn't feel that until I started working. Alhamdulillah, the masjid helped out with that. So I always felt like I had responsibility at the masjid where I had to take out the garbage. But for someone who didn't have that and just sitting at home complacent, when hitting work like that, it was like a big shift. Like I have to take care of the garbage now. I have to make sure every 15 minutes I'm checking something, and that responsibility comes in. I think it's super important. I think it's essential. Like the earlier that was started, and I mentioned this last part. I don't know if I mentioned it with you or Brother Muhammad. He's also in the back. Hi, Brother Muhammad. He's waving. I don't know if I mentioned it with him or mentioned it with the corrupted video. But I said, oh no, my Stevens interview, where they asked me, they were like, what would you change about school? And I told them I would give responsibility before.
What would you change about Stevens or your high school?
Your high school. And I said, if you were the principal, and I would say, what would I do personally, right? I'd give responsibility before accountability. Does that make sense?
Responsibility before accountability.
And I think this is in last.
I mean, that's Islamic, right?
No, I don't know if it's Islamic concept. This is what I deducted. Like, give them something to do.
Well, you're not going to be account unless you are responsible,
Yeah, but what I mean by Well, yeah, we did talk about it. He's confirmed. But what I mean is pretty much like throw responsibility at people and just get them responsible for like judging. If it makes sense. Like a lot of people are like, okay, this kid's a specific way, and let me not give him something. But if you give him the responsibility, he will go back to the way you want him to. Does that make sense? So I think responsibility in essence is important as soon as possible.
No, of course. I mean, that's the prophetic model, right? The Prophet empowered the Sahaba who were younger, right? He would have a remarkable ability. I mean, there are many stories you can look at, but he would have a remarkable ability of recognizing people's strength.
Mm-hmm.
Like he would know this person is particularly good at this, so I'm going to capitalize on it. So yeah, I mean, so in what practical ways would you give more responsibility?
I was about to ask the same thing.
No.
So like, yeah, how do you give responsibility at a young age? So and where does that come in? Because I feel like the society knows this. Also part of the question, like society, I don't think is built to give responsibility at a young age. I don't think it's built that way.
Yeah. Society isn't built to give responsibility. I think right now, I don't want to, because I don't want to sound like, my generation, because my generation had the same problems too. My generation,
millennials.
Yeah, 10 years before. I don't even think it's two different generations, but I think right now you have this culture where you have like a infantilization of like just everybody in society, right? Even in gaming. And not to say that gaming is particularly, but the average gamer's age is like 30s. The average gamer's age is in 30s. When you have people like, and particularly youth then, who are spending so much time, and that's my generation, so it's not, they're so absorbed with something else, they don't see the problems outside or anything. That doesn't nurture their talents that in itself doesn't build certain talents. So I think also recognizing someone's talents and then giving them responsibility. Not to say that this generation doesn't have any talent or anything like that, I don't want to go there, but I think just in this focused, or they don't have anything that I don't want to bash this generation. It's not.
Do
It's actually no. Not that I don't want to bash it because I'm afraid of offending anyone. I'm not.
but it's not. You'll learn.
No, it's yeah, I do agree that you should give responsibility, but the thing is, okay, let's start recognizing the problems in society. That's the first thing you need to do. And then what talent do you have to, or the problems in your own local community or school or whatever it is, and then what talent do you have to help fix that, right? I think if everyone's distracted by entertainment or whatever it is they're distracted by, I don't think unless you address that problem, I don't think you'll get to the next step.
The issue,
right?
Yeah. I guess I agree. I guess it's more of, it's not very like concrete. It's not pinpoint. You can't pinpoint. Oh, you do this. And
I wish I had some time to think about it. I think maybe
we got
probably something a little more
maybe next
clear.
Time yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's. I also don't think it can be pinpoint. I think it's gonna be this depending on person.
Well, there's a lot of problems, right? There's a lot of problems right now. I don't want to point out Noble particularly, but there's a lot of problems in society in general, right? So if you could start seeing like, hey, Ahmed has this particular talent, maybe one responsibility is like, you recognize some student leaders who are, particularly, inclined to something that you want, right? A good characteristic or whatever it is, or they pray on time, or they do something, right? And have those kids try to empower them to.
And I think that's exactly because we started halakha right on Tuesdays, and one of the things is like I felt that there's so many kids specifically, even though they might not be shown as the best kids, right? I feel there's a lot of potential specific kids, from an Islamic point of view, from just a goodness point of view. There's a lot of kids that the grown-ups have given up on, or in a sense. And I feel like
I don't think anyone's given up on anyone yet, to be honest with you.
Maybe not giving up, but like
there's
a perception of that. There's a conceived perception, right? And I think a lot of that, like, it's like these kids. When I went to halakha, I was like, I'll give these guys the opportunity to maybe nurture what they needed. Maybe give them that 5-minute, 10-minute, and a halakha. By the way, we're doing this Arabic translation, guys. A halakha is a kind of like group kind of class, if that's the way you describe it. Kind of. And I feel like that was the ability to nurture things. That would help nurture that kind of potential. And I think that's important as well.
Yeah, of course. I think definitely having mentors, having someone to sit down in a halqa or anything, having a mentor to recognize your, what you're good at, and then, trying to give you advice on how to get to a place wherever you want to get to. I think that's important. I think that's one of the things that if you want to build something successful, team them up with somebody or have somebody who can mentor them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think sometimes looking back on it, there's some things I would have done differently, right? And a lot of things I would have done differently, right? And having a person who can like kind of like been there, done that, I think that helps a lot too. It helps empower people, especially when you have someone who to ask questions to. Like, all right, now I still have someone who I can ask questions to, right?
Yeah. Sheikh Hatem.
Alhamdulillah.
And I was gonna go. We'll go into that because I do want to go into this concept of like your teachers and stuff like that. But then I also have this question. So my dad always tells me this, right? And I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just commenting, right? My dad was always like, when he was young, he used to sit with the older guys.
Yeah.
My dad used to. He's like I used to go sit with my dad in the school, sit with everybody older.
Yeah.
But then a lot of entertainment and a lot of culture, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, is trying to confine it to younger guys. You had to cut. Computer died. We had to play Maghrib. So alhamdulillah, we're gonna segue into what we were talking about. So well, I basically asked the question, and of course it's on video, but my dad always told me, right, that he used to sit with the kids, that guys that are older. He benefited from that, right? He benefited from that older experience. But now you have a push nowadays for a consistent push on younger people to connect to younger people, right? But there's no experience there to teach. So where does that balance come in?
Where does the balance come in? Okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I agree with your dad. I actually had the same kind of experience because my dad was, I think when I was born, he was in his 40s, like mid 40s, probably even later 40s. So I've always benefited from having an older person. When we're in high school, he's like in his retirement age. Even though he didn't retire, he was retirement age. Does that make sense? So I do agree with this. The balance, what balance per se? What do you?
So like where is it that we push for young teachers to connect to kids, but they lack experience? And then where do we push for older guys, but they might not be able to connect as well because they're older?
Okay, so I definitely do think, yeah. So especially if we're talking about like Muslim youth, right, or youth in general, I think it's important to have, people close to their age who they can relate to, who's a little bit older, probably just went through that stage that they're going through next, like college or something like that because they can advise them. It's still that generational gap is not far. Does that make sense? So I do think that's important. I think everyone should have a person like this, but I think everyone should have something even a little bit older. I think before we broke, we were actually on the point where we were talking about this is actually something that from our Muslim society perspective, it's something that non-Muslims, like the RAND Corporation, and I gave some background about the RAND Corporation.
You just reiterate this in case.
The RAND Corporation, it's a think tank. They make policy review for, people in the State Department, all the way up to the Vice President, influential people in society. The RAND Corporation publishes reports about things that they consider important. In 2002, 2003, they actually did several of these studies. One of the things they said to secularize and liberalize Muslims, promote younger imams. Have a push where how you promote them. You give them speaking positions. You give them, you invite them to political, events that are important, right? Invite them to, speak in front of a political rally. Does that make sense? Promote younger people because this would help, because these younger people also, it helps take away from that traditional, that cultural thing that sometimes holds you back, holds you down to the deen. There's there's a lot of things that's wrong with culture, and the older people do bring a lot more cultural aspects to their, like Islam, for example. But there are some things that, for example, just relations within the genders, for example. There's some cultural stuff there that's good because it holds you down. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Some people know they can't do certain things. From even a cultural perspective, forget Islamic perspective, cultural perspective, they can,
ground you.
It grounds you. Does it make sense? And one of the things they advocated is to actually promote younger. So I think we have to make that clear that you do need to have still those older influences, even though the person has a strange accent or something like that. I think you do need those.
You can still benefit from them.
You can still benefit them. It is also, that's what knowledge is at. If you want true knowledge, even about, like, say, the deen or something, you're not. the younger person is probably not the person who has that ilm, right? It's usually the older sheikh from, who has a strong accent.
Yeah,
if you want to take people away from that knowledge, you would do what? Advocate away from this.
I think it's also.
It's a movement across America, by the way. You'll see it. All these.
Oh no, that's exactly what I mean.
These masajid now are not to criticize. Obviously, masajid are dealing with their own problems, but it's a movement right now. You'll see it.
No, I want to say there's also like, okay, then where do you, and going back to this responsibility conversation, right? Where is it that we give young people this responsibility to teach, and where is it that we hold them back from teaching due to a lack of knowledge as well?
I don't think you do one or the other. I think you give them responsibility to teach, but also don't have this. We all now have this caricature in our head, like, the old sheikh who has a bad broken accent, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we, there seems to be like a very dismissive kind of attitude now in our society with that. I think you keep that person because you do ground people in it. You do ground people in their deen and their tradition, and you do give young people moments
to step up,
step up and give khutbahs and halaqah and interact with the youth and youth directors and all these things. Does it make?
So it's a very balanced. There's a balance to it.
Yeah.
I think I 100% agree with that. I think it's important. I think both sides are important. Like again, like my dad said, I think I've sat with my dad a couple of times with his friends, which you benefit from that. But even if they're not necessarily what they're talking about is not all like knowledge, but you benefit just from what they're talking about in terms of experience or in terms of opinion. Yeah. It's a different spectrum, a different point of view.
You'll see different things that are important. You start seeing the world through a different lens.
Yeah, and then I guess we'll segue to another part of what you mentioned, because we mentioned Sheikh Hatem al-Hajj, and we had this conversation before on the side, but I think it's really beneficial. You're good, brother Ahmed. Where you have personally, right, from what I know about you, you keep a lot of good people around you. Whether you grew up with Sheikh Osama from ICBC Clifton, you grew up with Muhammad Awad from Islamic Relief. You've met people like, and alhamdulillah, like Hamza Zortis and Sheikh Muhammad Shanawi, or on a personal level, right? So from my perspective, it's like, wow, these people to me, right? These are the guys I watch on like YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And these are the guys like, wow. But they're people. They're still people, and that's important to acknowledge firstly. But then, how is it that you've come to put yourself around good people like that?
So everyone who I've met that you've just named, it probably occurred in a masjid or something Islamic related. So, I think if you want to meet good people, if you want to meet people, then you have to be in places where those people congregate, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone actually that you've mentioned, except for maybe one student, Muhammad. We've been friends since 7th grade, and we have funny stories since then. But
we can't mention these stories.
We're not gonna mention these stories. But I think everyone there I met in the masjid. So you put yourself in places where you're gonna see, and you're not going to the masjid for that reason. But these are the houses of Allah, and if you want to meet those people who are actually going to be lifelong friends, you're gonna start seeing people who have the same kind of goals, or at least the ultimate goal, right? Who have that same perspective, and you're in that environment. You're gonna meet people. Like Sheikh Murad right now, who's now in Epic Masjid, right?
That's the name of a masjid?
Yeah, Epic Masjid. It's actually called Epic. So every event is an epic event.
Wow.
This is a masjid with Yasser Qadi's at. Right?
Really?
Yeah. Murad is the youth director over there now.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, MashaAllah. And again, I met him. He was teaching a Sirah class one day. I knew I was friends with his brother for like 10 years before that, but I came into the class, sat down. I didn't know him. And afterwards you'll see these brothers. They're very, very friendly.
It's not awkward. It's not awkward. Like hi.
No. Well, you sit down and eventually someone's gonna. If you attend the classes long enough, someone's gonna say salam, and So and then later on, that's how friendships.
You guys go out and eat. The best way to someone's heart is food.
And then you're through these people. You meet other people, and then you start.
Good people keep themselves around good people. Yeah,
exactly. So be in a place where you're gonna find people who are thinking about their ultimate purpose.
And I think also as well, and I agree. And you said something. The people, you have the same goals, and I think that Kamil, please close the door, please. Kamil, close the door. The people that have the same goals, the goal oriented, and have the same goals. I think as well, and the corrupted podcast that is gone now that I can't like. But one of the things that me and Ryan was supposed to be the guest mentioned was like have these like keep people who have goals. Their goals want to be something better. Keep people like that around you.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to only be Dean related. It could be like, for example, you want to be I don't know, you want to be a doctor or something. You're a high schooler. Start acquainting yourself with students who are like in college who are going down that pre-med track, right? They have some advice here. Some of the best advice came from these people.
Yeah.
Right. Some of the best don't take that class, take this class. Do this, volunteer here, do this. These things we all know it. It's like the MSA circle, right? The older people in MSA kind of help out the younger people in MSA. That's like another environment, right?
It's also a place to get married, but
yeah, I mean, either you're in MSA for like college help or you get married. Alhamdulillah, there might be a couple brothers who are or sisters who are just there because they want to learn the deen.
It's also a good place.
I had two friends who got married from the MSA, so I would.
Good place, man. Good place.
Alhamdulillah.
I'm also. I guess I didn't mention this topic, but I'm gonna go into this, right? Because one of the things I'm afraid of personally right now, I'm going to college, and you know this. Like I'm going into college, and one of the things I've made this clear to my friends was like I'm afraid to go there, right? For a reason like the environment there is different. It changes you, either better or worse. So now you're talking to me. What are some advices you have, and to our viewers as well, that going into this new environment, whether it be working or college or in general, how do you keep yourself grounded in? Say now we talked about good environments like the masjid. How do you keep yourself grounded in not necessarily the best environments?
How do you keep yourself grounded in college and like as in
college, work environment? Well, they're good. They're not bad environments, right? But they're environments where they can change you in ways that you don't necessarily want to.
Okay, so if you're talking about from a social perspective, all the problems there, like from interactions with the opposite gender or whatever the problems are, the latest problems are, right?
Yeah.
The first thing is the company is the most important thing. Company is the most important. Who you surround yourself with. So to go to the MSA, I would recommend every Muslim who's at least interested in protecting themselves.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people who kind of have have that same goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
The MSA is the perfect place for this. The second thing is obviously you keep the essentials, right? You keep your salah, right? That's something that you see it goes in two ways. Either people who are kind of here and there with the salah, they just get more serious with it, and then or people who don't, right? They just go away from it. So keep the salah, right? And then stay with people who are have the same kind of goal. And the other thing is academically. Now you're going to be confronted with some ideologies. Know that this is just a drop in the ocean. You're going to have a philosophy professor who might, introduce it to idea, and you're going to start questioning things, or a biology professor, or, a sociology, gender studies professor, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to introduce it, and they're going to make it seem like, this is the be and end all. This disproves religion, or this disproves something. Know that this is only a drop in the ocean. This is like an introductory course, right? Know that going in, ground yourself in your religion, but know that what they're saying, this is only, the more you study it, if you look at the great thinkers in history, Isaac Newton, who's considered the greatest scientist of all time, he did everything because of religion, right? So he came to these conclusions. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the great thinkers, they came through a lot of the great philosophers came through, for religion. Does that make sense? And they didn't leave religion because of it. So what this professor might be introducing you to is just a drop in the ocean.
He's not giving you the full.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they see that drop in the ocean and they think that's real knowledge, and that
they hear one thing, like this has changed my life.
Yes, exactly.
This is it.
Ground yourself in the basics. I think it's important that students or anybody, they ground themselves before they go into college, and just know that, have that in the back of your head. A good thing, maybe like. There's some important books you could probably go over, basic fundamentals in religion, aqidah issues.
And then as well, sorry to cut you off. Right. One of the things I think as well, and you've mentioned this as well, like drawing those lines, right?
Yeah.
That voice crack. How is it's sometimes uncomfortable, right? And now I'm in the work environment. I work at Starbucks. Like it's sometimes hard to make it clear these lines. Yeah. Like alhamdulillah, my coworkers are very supportive, and they're understanding, right? Yeah. But at college level, it's not the same. Yeah. When you go, it's like I can't shake your hand. This what? I didn't sneeze in it, man. I didn't. It's clean.
No.
I can't shake it. You know.
Yeah.
First of all, how important is it to draw those lines, and how does it like not awkward? So.
It's very important to draw those lines at the beginning, because if you don't draw those lines at the beginning, it's a slippery slope, and you're just going to end up in places that you probably didn't want to be in.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Personally, like, I know that there's nothing that a person, you're not going to get elevated, and you're not going to see more, likable or something because you're going to compromise with Allah, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, a long, long time ago when I worked at Walgreens, and the assistant manager had hired me. The store manager was away, right? She was away, and the first time she sees me is like this bearded guy. He's in my office. I don't know what he's doing. I was doing a training in there.
He's big and scary.
She comes in. She's like, "Who is this guy?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm the person you hired." She sticks out her hand to shake my hand. She was younger, so I was like, "Sorry, you don't shake hands." So this is like a crazy first impression. She's like, "Okay."
Okay.
And then she introduced me to the pharmacy manager, and then she was also like some girl in her 30s. She's like, "Hi, how are you?" I was like, "I'm sorry, I don't shake hands." No, I originally applied for a farm tech position, and I didn't get it right away. Right? That was probably a bad way to introduce myself to the pharmacy manager, or at least I thought so. But alhamdulillah, like, at this period, I was like, I'm gonna stick to these standards. Alhamdulillah, like, over time, they had, like, sometimes they were short staffed, so they'd ask me to come in, and then as you work and you show yourself to be, good at I don't want to say I was good at what I did, but you show yourself to be trustworthy in what you're doing. Towards the end, the pharmacy manager, she had actually told me, like, if you need a job at any pharmacy I work at, I'm going to, just
hook
let me
you
know.
up.
Right? And the store manager, when I told her I was leaving because I had a college research internship over the summer, she told me, she started almost crying. She's like, "I know you, like, I see you more than I see my own children," because she was just committed to the store that much. Yeah. And then it's one of those things you're never going to lose by
sticking
to those principles. People actually respect you more. They're going to say, okay, this person, if they see you flaky, they're going to be like, oh, he doesn't even care.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. Yeah. Not more, like when I work, like I have to go pray. You know what I mean? Yeah. I have to, like, we have a lot of bar baristas, right? And they'll be curious, right? It's like, so then some of them are not used to it. Like when I tell them, they're like, go put the pork in the oven. I'm like, I'm sorry to tell you,
no, I'm doing that.
I'm doing it. They're like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're not doing it? I'm like, I'm your shift. I'm like, religious.
There's Sheikh Osama. We went to high school together. Yeah. And this is like the early 2000s. His name is Osama. So that shows you already. He had a beard, probably bigger than mine, in like 10th grade.
Wow.
I don't know how he did it, but alhamdulillah he did.
He doesn't have a beard now, man.
His beard was bigger in 10th grade, 10th grade. Again, his name is Osama, and this is like Clifton High School is a public high school, maybe 2 or 3 years after 9/11. Yeah. 4 years after. Within that same Iraq War, the country's really against Muslims, or they have this stereotype right now. He was the most respected kid in class. I remember in philosophy class, time something happened, kids would ask him, Osama, what's Islam's take on this? Like, non-Muslims, we had a debate on gay marriage, which you're probably never going to have anymore, period. It's done. The debate's over. But, like, we had a debate on that. And everyone was agreeing with him. And, because people not only just agreed, but it was like they had a respect for him. Right? Yeah. Because he carried himself, he would take himself seriously, take the deen seriously, and people respected that. Even though they might disagree with whatever it is, but they respected the fact that he took himself seriously. And I think we all the Muslim brothers in the class, we all felt that. Like, we all felt like, he's taking himself seriously, and the people are
respecting him.
Yeah.
And then, so then I'm gonna segue into another thing. So it's similar. So now you're going into college, right? You're shifting in this. You have one dynamic, right, where it's going against you, right? But then you have your family behind you, right? But now you're growing out of your family in essence. Not growing out, but you're growing older. So you might not be. Let's say your family is not impacting your thought as much, right? But how much is that? Even at that age and at a younger age, is that family structure still important to help ground you as well?
I mean, that family structure is definitely important because, someone recently was telling me, my wife actually, she was discussing what she was like, a person could be viewed as like the sum total of the 5 closest people to them, right?
Yeah.
Like the average of those 5 people who are closest to you. She was asking who are the 5 people closest to me, and she was I one of them?
Yeah, no, was it? She's waiting. You're going on the list.
I was like,
where
my
am
mom,
I?
my dad. But you're the sum total of those 5 people, right? So, the stronger that unit is, the stronger the family unit is. I think that would definitely, you're in college and you're probably not thinking about, but those lessons are instilled, right? Those lessons are instilled. Those subconscious things are instilled too. So the stronger that is, the stronger that role was there from beforehand, I think it will help you. If it was actually a good, positive environment.
And then, well, let's say it wasn't, right? Now you're going older, and now it's your decision, right? You're going older. This is your time to either zip out of home, right? Get your own life, or still keep that environment, although it may be bad. So now a lot of people tend to choose the latter, or the first one, right?
Yeah.
Where they'll just forget about parents until they finish college, come visit once every Christmas or something. So how does someone still stick to that then?
Stick to the family?
No, so what is the benefit? Sorry, let me rephrase. Yeah, what is the benefit of still sticking to that family instead of zipping out?
I mean, the benefits are many if you're talking about like Islamic perspective, but not everyone's gonna have the perfect family. But I think a little bit of introspection sometimes helps, right?
Yeah.
Provided there's no like abuse or anything like that. But I like to ask myself, what did maybe somebody did wrong, or somebody in the family did something wrong? How could I benefit from that? Does that make sense? How could I not do that mistake?
Yeah.
I think that helps. Like if you'd be interested, I know that I mean, obviously you have to stick to
Family's family.
It's a command. And then family's family. Yeah. So always know that it is important, even if you don't love it. You're fulfilling the commands of Allah. But sometimes think, okay, they did 1, 2, 3 wrong, but look at the positives. That's the first thing, and the second thing is look, how could I not do that?
Yeah.
Like, look at it as a learning opportunity. Like, okay, my parents were 1, 2. They didn't. Might have 1, 2, 3 could have been better. So I'm not gonna do that. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
I think you could always view it as a learning.
And I agree. I always say, even at the halaq, I said this, and when I gave a halaq on Saturday, I said the same thing. I'm like, the parents never have a bad intention, so don't assume.
Yeah, it's like
they'll never have a bad intention.
They didn't have a bad intention. Maybe they didn't execute it right, but again,
they're still your parents. They
still
still
parents,
care.
Yeah. So I think having that in your mind, like, you know what, maybe they didn't do things that you probably, or maybe they did something and you probably just didn't see the wisdom in it.
Yeah.
That's another thing, right? That sort of I was telling you one of my favorite Mark Twain quotes was it's like, I used to think my father was a fool when I was 14. Now that I'm 21, I've realized how much he's changed. Right? That kind of arrogance of youth.
Yeah.
From 21 now, he thinks his father changed. It's like, no. You're the one who got smarter. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, I can agree, and I think it's important. Now, sticking to the topics, and a lot of hot topic, now we're going to go into the juicy topics of like this
stuff,
week.
Right?
This week, right? So, and even in the college perspective, and Ryan was mentioning this, he's at a high school level. But politics has stemmed into a younger generation now, right? Where politics is now in our social media, it's in our everything.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think it's important in some aspect, but it's everywhere now. Let's discuss this week's Democratic election. So now we know. From what I know, I didn't get to watch too much of it, right? But I got to.
I didn't watch the debate, but I did watch segments of it.
Yeah, we'll be like clear right now. We're gonna be explicit because I have no issue talking about this. So we'll go like topic, right? So first thing, new thing this week, right? We have Zamira Bloomberg.
Yeah, Bloomberg with all his money.
Yeah. So I feel like I don't get where all this support is coming from. Like there is a genuine support for this guy.
I think some of his support is coming from other than Bernie people. Can we get anyone other than Bernie and the candidates that they're putting up? Joe Biden, he's not appealing in many ways, right?
He's old.
To people, and he rambles on a little bit.
And he was a racist at one point, yeah.
He has baggage. Baggage. Then you have Buttigieg, which some factions of the party would, obviously have the issue with him.
And his experience as well.
And his experience and his lack of, he's a mayor of a city. That's
He's a good speaker, but that's it.
And then the other candidates. So Bloomberg is like, at least he was viewed as, someone we can finally cling on to, right?
Before he got destroyed yesterday.
Yeah, like how in 2016, anybody but Trump, please, just not Trump. Like the Republicans were grasping for anyone.
Yeah.
Right? I think Bloomberg would represent that, and he was trying to capitalize on that. And I think, obviously with the money that I think he spent $500 million
already. Yeah.
Yeah, he could buy out the airway. He could buy 20-minute ads.
The guy got
play every primetime hour.
Guy got cash, bro.
Yeah. So.
But then, okay, so then where's all the hate on Sanders? Look, I was telling Ryan again, his episode's gone. But one of the things I was mentioning, I was like, for me at least, I get to vote next year. Right? I don't know if I'm gonna vote necessarily, but I get to vote, right? And one of the things I was saying is like, as long as the guy has good ideas, and it's ideas of priority, right? A lot of people have good ideas, but it's not what we need right now. But as long as he has a good idea of priority, it might not be executed, but it's in the right direction. So what's all the hate on Bernie? I think a lot of the things he's saying is in the right direction. Might not be necessarily great, but it's in the right direction.
Who's the hate from? So a lot of things Bernie says, when you do polls on it, it polls very highly. Mm-hmm. His Medicare for all, universal single payer healthcare. Yeah. This has been polled to the American people numerous times since I've been following politics. 2003, it's been polled. And it's always received the majority of support. Majority over 50%. Sometimes 60, even up to 69% support. So who's the hate from? So maybe Bernie, conveying the idea, but a lot of it is sometimes how the idea gets spun by the media. He's talking about some anti-corporate stuff.
Anti-money stuff, yeah.
Anti-money, anti-corporate, and it's going to offend certain people, and they're going to spin it some way. And then, if your perspective, all you see is CNN, Fox, NBC, MSNBC, whatever. Pick your corporation, whatever it is. They're still going to filter that perspective out. They're still. I was telling someone, he's polling he was polling 19%. He was polling 19% higher in, polling at 19% above every other candidate in Nevada, right?
Wow.
That was a couple of days ago. I think it's narrowed a little bit. Now he's down to 15% or something like this.
Yeah.
But I think even if he wins by 10%, you're going to see the news articles, Bernie Sanders is losing support.
Yeah.
Opponents are catching up, right? When you frame things in that perspective, you also get people, you change the narrative. You change the narrative of how they view Bernie. Oh, he's not electable. He's not going to be able to beat Trump. I think some of the hate is that. Some of the hate is just, the use of the word socialism has been, come to mean certain things.
Yeah.
Come to mean certain things. It's a loaded term. Probably not a term I would have used. It's a loaded term.
You told me this and about socialism and what was his name? The guy who wrote Adam Smith.
Adam Smith. Capitalism.
Yeah. You told me that I don't know if you still stick by
it. And this is not actually my theory. This is some Noam Chomsky, right? Noam Chomsky. He says if Adam Smith was alive, he would kind of advocate a type of socialism. Adam Smith, by the way, is the founder
of
capitalism, right? Yeah. He would be something in the vein of a socialist. And this is something like Noam Chomsky who makes this claim.
Yeah.
If you study his Wealth of Nation book, the original publication, because it's an edited publication, you would actually see that the kind of ideas he's calling for matches up with socialism. Right?
Yeah.
He wasn't calling for unfettered capitalism. He wasn't calling for what...
And I can agree, like socialism also, from a historical is loaded.
It's a loaded term.
Yeah.
The Nazis were fascist capital, but they called it the Socialist National Socialist Party, right? So
Soviet Russia.
Exactly. So you just have this word being thrown around, and it loses meaning, right? That's the thing about some words like that. It just loses meaning. So just throw it around. Probably not the best thing to name it.
Okay, so I when I was discussing this with Sharif, and Sharif is a friend of mine, we were discussing this back in the first debate, right? Back. And then to me, my views on Sanders at that time were a little more reserved. But I always thought, regardless, I think Joe Biden was gonna get the electoral. I think he was. I just felt like he's the
establishment pick.
Yeah, he's the establishment pick. He feels like the guy that they pick, right? He has experience. He fits their agenda. He's worked with Barack Obama. He'll get those votes. He seems like the right guy. Do you think? But now it's shifting. I feel like everybody's going for Sanders.
The momentum has definitely swung to Sanders.
Yeah. But do you think that it's still it's as of now going to be Sanders? We have a year left, but
Yeah, so I hopefully I think he's the best out of the field. I mean, I'm announcing who I'm voting for.
You don't vote, brother. You don't
yeah,
vote.
I did in 2008, but yeah, it seems like the momentum is swinging to his side. But you know, again, the media is not on his side. So any victory by anyone else can be spun, or any like marginal victory by Bernie can be twisted. And
Yeah.
And you know, the whole delegate situation, it's one of those things that's
Electoral college is fun.
that's a whole thing.
But then, okay, politics in general, right? Politics in general. I'm reserved about politics just for the sheer reason I watched, and I was telling Ryan this, right? Like I watched the white supremacy hearing last year, and I told you about this. I went off, like I couldn't take it after watching it. Watched the whole 3 hours of it, and I feel like a lot of politicians are jokes, and politics in general is a joke at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Do you think? First of all, like it's a joke because I just think everybody's going for a party agenda, right?
Yeah.
But then that's one thing, and then there's also that like systematic push against anything that could be good change in essence. So and there's a lot of buzzwords to it. And politics bothers me, right?
The horse race, the horse race of politics.
Yeah, the horse race. Do you think that there's gonna be a shift in that anytime soon, or is that just politics?
So pre 2016, pre Bernie emerging, and then to some extent Donald Trump too, because he was the same thing for the Republicans, right? So
Yeah.
it's completely out of left or right field, if you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
It was always feeling like that. This is why I didn't vote in 2016 and 2012, whatever. Now you've actually seen some topics being discussed that were not discussed before.
Like?
For example, the single-payer healthcare, the universal Medicare for all, right? It was the most popular issue when people were surveyed in 2007. Does it make sense? It received the majority of support by polls. It got endorsements from Nobel Prize-winning economist Joe Stiglitz and others endorsed it. Yeah. When Obama convened his healthcare summit and he brought all the industry, all the experts in different strategies and different perspective in healthcare, just to craft Obamacare. The one issue that was left off the table was universal single payer, the most popular issue. The one that was backed by Nobel Prize-winning economists and doctors.
So it shows a shift
and the majority of people. Yeah, it was not even allowed to be in the conversation. It was not even brought to the table.
Yeah. So you think that shift is coming in some sense?
And largely in part because I would give Bernie Sanders a lot of credit for this. He's brought it into the conversation. He's brought things into like, for example, the military budget was never ever questioned.
And you mentioned this to me, and you told me this, like you don't vote, like when someone doesn't mention the military budget, then
this is why I was hesitant about Bernie Sanders. Like the last campaign season, the 2016 cycle, he talked a lot about Wall Street.
Yeah.
Which is important. Like, but that's an easy target. That's ignoring the $1.25 trillion elephant in the room. The $1.25 trillion. So studies were done about the size of the U.S. military budget. So you have the Pentagon, which is like $775 billion. Then you have the Department of Energy that controls nuclear weapons. Then you have different departments. Department of Homeland Security. They're separate departments.
Yeah.
So if you add up the sum total of defense, and then you have to talk about upgrading the weapons and taking care of people who have healthcare issues because of our, and then paying the credit card on China because you're borrowing most of the money to fight.
Yeah, man.
So when you look at the sum total of the military budget is $1.25 trillion. If a candidate is not talking about that, they're not serious.
So, gaming computers, I think, they'll have to cut off. Yep. So we're gonna continue. So we're talking Sanders, specifically, and how he's kind of that left wing, or not left wing, that left position that is off field, where now he's coming with new ideas. So you can continue.
Yeah, I mean, what he's in 2016, it's probably unseen in certainly in modern politics, right? He's bringing up conversations that were never talked about before. Right now, you have people talking about, again, we talked about universal single-payer healthcare, Medicare for all, he calls it. You have people talking now about the military. which is something that was like untouchable before. And I was mentioning, I think when we left off, is like the budget is $1.25 trillion, right? And this is conservatively calculated, right? When you add up all the different expenditures from the Pentagon to actually wars to everything, when you add it up, to the interest that we pay on the money that we borrowed for the military, to the Department of Energy being responsible for nuclear arms, etc. And now it was one of those things that no one even discussed. I remember in 2008 when they passed the bailout, in like literally the same day they passed like a $700+ billion Pentagon budget, and that wasn't even. You had to actually go out of your way to even find out that. And I was telling you in 2016, I'm a little hesitant on Bernie because he's not talking about that enough. I know he was talking more about Wall Street then, which is like an easy.
An easy pick. Yeah.
Easy. Everyone's gonna agree. Who's gonna disagree? Now that he's talking about these things, you could clearly see that because these things have become now mainstream to talk about, or at least in some circles, not in the mainstream yet, but in an educated college campus, you're hearing people talk about it. You're hearing the younger people now talk about it. You're hearing people talk about AIPAC, for example. How many people used to talk about the Israeli lobby?
Nobody.
Now it's at least there's some questioning of the Israel as that fundamental ally in the Middle East that everyone was unquestionable.
Do you think it has to do with Bernie himself, or is just also there's that social media young aspect of people trying to be more active?
Both. I think they both coincided together, where you have that was like the first. I mean, in 2012 it was a year where you had a lot of social media, but this in 2016 you really had a takeoff. Does it make sense?
Yeah, activism online.
Yeah, activism online, and I think he capitalized on it, and I think they both just worked out perfectly. Where you have that,
and it works well.
Yeah, so I think you have both. It's both coming together, and I think that is actually one of the positives you could say about Bernie's social media.
But I think again the party is against him. I think at the moment, like Bloomberg was put in there for that specific reason, and then. The Amy Klobuchar is Amy Klobuchar. I hate her so much. She's a thing.
Anybody but Bernie movement right now.
Yeah, anybody but Bernie movement, and then Buttigieg is not experienced enough.
But you know how you silence critics? Just keep winning, right? That's what they say. Just keep winning. He just needs to keep winning. I think he's winning in at least in polls, Nevada, South Carolina. I think he's second, but I don't like the horse race. By the way, I don't like this whole polling. I don't like any of this stuff. But it's good to see that hopefully he gets some momentum. Yeah. Right. So just keep winning. Just keep winning so they can. The Republicans didn't like Trump in 2016, but they had to give him the nomination because he just kept winning. Yeah, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. Just keep winning. I think that's what.
And I agree. I guess with Zeyad, we've benefited a lot from this conversation. I appreciate you coming on. No. I think the viewers are going to appreciate this episode. I guess I'm going to hit you with two quick fire questions before we end. One, tomorrow there's a fight.
Wilder versus Fury.
Yeah, yes. Wilder versus Fury, right? Who do you think is going to win?
Fury.
Why?
He's a better boxer. I think the last time he got caught, he got dropped.
Because he hit
Wilder hits hard. Yeah. Wilder's he hits hard. That's the first thing. I think he's long, but I think he also hits from unconventional angles. He just swings his hand at an angle that
I've seen it.
You don't really. There's a statement. The punches that you don't see are the ones that knock you out, right? The punches that you don't see, like. And it's not about which one is harder punches, the ones that you don't see.
Yeah.
Like anybody can knock anybody out, right? If you hit somebody and they don't see it, full force, it doesn't matter if the person's heavyweight champion of the world. Does it make sense? And that's the thing about he's very awkward. But I think Fury has enough skill, at least if he's training to how he was training when he was at his peak, to try to avoid getting hit while scoring points.
Yeah.
And because it's a
that's
point
what
fight.
I thought of it as well. I was like, last time he showed that he had the skill of it.
Yeah.
Like he had that whole like shimmy on the hits. And he had that skill. Although he might have got knocked down because of hard hits.
Yeah.
You showed that he.
Well, how he got back up, it was like, it looked like somebody just woke up from the dead or something.
Undertaker style.
Yeah, Undertaker style back in the WWE.
So that's one thing. And I guess last question. Democratic nominee, do you think it's going to be? It's a year's time from what we have right now.
You have to go with the front runner. I think Bernie. I think they're going to try to fight as hard as possible. The establishment is going to try to do as much as possible to not make that the case. I'd be interested to see if Obama comes out and endorses it. I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's Biden. I think Biden, unless Biden needs a win, like several wins, or he needs a substantial win to like, even get back in the race. But it would be interesting to see if he does anything like endorse it. I don't think he will until somebody wins the nomination.
I actually didn't think about that.
Yeah,
Actually, that could be
but if he comes out to throw his support behind somebody, I think that could play a big role.
Yeah, actually, I did not think of that. Could be huge
because he's still massively
everybody
popular.
loves him. Everybody loves him. Yeah.
I don't know why, but yeah. No, I do know why. He's very charismatic. He's young. He's eloquent. But
He's Obama.
He's Obama, right? So I think Bernie. I think you have to go with the front row. I think that you just keep winning and do enough that they can't deny you the nomination.
Thank you, brothers, yet again for coming on. We're just gonna hit the social medias real quick. T Passion Project on Instagram. Saqer Punch, SaqerPunch on Instagram, on Twitch. T Passion Project on Twitter. Saqer Punch on Twitter as well. Yeah,
that's such a great name.
Brother Zeyad wants us to change the name to Saqer Punch.
Let's take a vote. Let's take a vote.
Yeah, take a poll down in the comments.
Take a vote. I think Saqer Punch is
10 times better. That's how he feels.
Yeah.
So leave that in the comments as well. Leave your feedback in the comments as well. Appreciate everybody who watched. Thank you guys so much. Peace.